Good afternoon on what is a bright, mild and sunny day. It is Saturday, the October the 16th. I'm in the Read Nook with some parcels, some of which I've already opened. But I'm going to open a parcel which is hot through my letterbox, as it were. And inside I have this, which is Bloods Are Over, The Complete Adventures of a Boy and His Dog by Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison is a noted science fiction author, and when I refer to A Boy and His Dog, many of you will remember the 1975 film starring Don Johnson, set in a post-apocalyptic future where Don Johnson wanders the land looking basically in the company of his dog, who is telepathic, and basically in return for feeding the dog searches out women for the boy Vic to basically find company with, and it has a very 70s post-apocalyptic feel. It feels a little bit sort of ramshackle as well, but it's a really good film, and it's well acted. Don Johnson looks incredibly young, although he's actually in his 20s, not 18 as Vic is meant to be. And there's great interaction between him and Dog, who is, a really curmudgeonly character. So, to Bloods Are Over, The Complete Adventures of a Boy and His Dog. 5 years in the making, the Edgeworks Abbey Archive represents Harlan Ellison's last word on his written legacy. Research nurtured by the author's long-term associate Jason Davis under the supervision of Harlan and Susan Ellison. This collection assembles the preferred texts of each story and essay along with the previously uncollected and unpublished material to create the definitive edition. Harlan Ellison introduced you to Vic and Blood in the 1969's Nebula Award-winning novella A Boy and His Dog. You thrilled to their on-screen adventures in the 1975 Hugo Award-winning feature film adaptation, billed as a kinky tale of survival. It's not really that kinky, but it's kinky enough without being weird. 1977 and 1980 brought the brief reunions in Eggsucker and Ron Spot Ron, and the promise of another story and a third solo Spike to make the dystopian duo a tribulation trio, but only audiobooks and comics followed, revisiting the same tales. Now, 50 years after they first set off across the vast wasteland, Vic and Blood are back, Blood being obviously the dog. Harlan Ellison and his editor Jason Davis have painstakingly assembled the whole story of Vic and Blood and Spike from the author's files, using revised and expanded versions of the novellas and short stories, interstitial material developed for Richard Corbin's graphic adaptation, and for the first time, never before, published material from the aborted 1977 NBC series Bloods Are Over, to tell the complete story of a boy and his dog and a girl who is tougher than the other combined. Let's not forget the wit and wisdom of Blood. So, yeah, if you wanted poster, I think that's the thing. Basically, the post-apocalyptic genre is fairly popular these days because of the times we live in. So obviously we've had remakes of Mad Max. There's Judge Dredd, which is an ongoing post-apocalyptic tale, because whether you like it or not, it's just taking place in a giant city with the apocalypse next door, and various things like that. Role-playing, you've got Mutant Crawl Classics, and there are always new post-apocalyptic tales turning up, and Mutant Year Zero, of course. And people turn to sort of things like A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walt Miller, something like that. Okay, and they forget about this one, and I think this is something that you should delve into. I mean, certainly, I've only glanced at the comics, because you never quite could find them, but I've seen the film a couple of times and really enjoyed it. It's dark, it's twisted, and it's exact, and it's rough. and there are cannibals about, including Vic and Dog, you know, and they're eating to survive, not necessarily knowing of the consequences. But I think this is likely a text that you probably should read as a feel for a post-apocalyptic world, or certainly a post-immediate apocalyptic world, essentially sort of like a few years after the disaster. Everybody's basically trying to live underground and surviving, if not, you know, taking shelter from the storms. And inside, we have a nice little dedication to Michael Moorcock. Okay, there we go. And then we delve into basically a bit of information about for how they came across Blood's a Rover, and again more details will be in here. And then we go on to essentially what the Over the Hill, 50 years in the post-apocalyptic wastes, which introduces essentially the setting and the history of the books as such. Well, there were excerpts, I think, really nice edition of excerpts from the letters from Harlan Ellison as well, the notes as well. I think that's a nice touch. Gives you a bit of background. And then we really delve into the first book, Eggsucker. Life isn't easy, it's really tough, but look on the bright side. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, from the wit and wisdom of Blood. And this is set in 2063. So yeah, and then we've got more wit and wisdom there. That's a nice touch of basically using the basic section prefaces to place that nice and clear up front. A nice little short discussion, I think, you know, wit and wisdom, basically the conversation that took place on Wednesday night between a couple of characters. Again, just a few pages, you know, just get into it. And we leap on to 2064 for the for a boy and his dog, and that's the core text. That's the text of where you start for this, because that's the one that everyone knows. But this gives you a chance to really go sort of like back a minute. Not only reread it again or read it for the first time, especially if you've just seen the film, but then sort of like go back and look at the history of the book and the other stories around it, which have not always been available. And yeah, another bit of touch, wisdom of Blood. Don't fret about it, kid. Nobody gets out of childhood alive. Never a true word said. So Run Spot's Spot. Next story. And Blood's a Rover itself. This is, I mean, a nice touch here of just how Blood is essentially is both is obviously the more mature of the two characters in the stories, because Vic is often, you know, thinking. Basically, thinking with his little head is the phrase I would use. Basically, thinking with his libido, rather than his brains. Whereas, I mean, Blood is more interested in, okay, when's my next meal? So another bit of wisdom is the most taxing problem faced by those of us of the intellectual elite is that, unfortunately, telepathy takes two minds. And again we get to the eponymous story, Blood's a Rover, and this is actually more akin to that's the script for the pilot, and that would be great. It'd be fantastic if that could be made today, and people would do it, and probably could would enjoy it. And again, that's fairly lengthy, actually, taking up quite a lot of the book, the back half of the book. So yeah, that would be utterly amazing. I mean, the script is there. We've just got to throw money at it and want to make it. Somebody send this to Netflix. And then we've got discussion with Richard Corbin about the creation of the comics he drew. And then story commentary from Ellison himself in basically why I wrote this story. And then, yeah, it's basically just everything. We've got a complete chronology at the back of the works of Harlan Ellison. And he basically created, so he's also known for creating some stories for, what's it called? For the Twilight Zone as well. So yeah, that's Bloods Are Over, the complete A Boy and His Dog, which at the very least, if you're not going to read this, go and watch the movie, because it's really enjoyable, and it's weird and creepy and grubby and grungy and really suitably post-apocalyptic, and honestly, Vic and Blood are not nice characters, but you'll still like them all the same, and that's the point. So yeah, and I look forward to reading this. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do click the like button down below. In the meantime, if you've got any comments or feedback, do post those, and I will take the time to read them and appreciate it if you, when you do. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings here in the Nook, where you will see me with some parcels. And a book or game which I can talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all accompanied, of course, by a nice hot cup of tea. Please do hit that subscribe button. Meantime, thanks again for watching. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.